Okay, so hello, one and all. And some of you might know what I mean by that, because sometimes I'm just talking to one really, and then maybe a few others. And I'm sorry if today I'm not going to be very coherent, probably as usual, but I'm probably getting worse because I'm all on one side because I can't hear too well on this side. So that does tend to put you out of sync, if you know what I mean. And it makes it a bit harder to... But at any rate, once again, forget about that. I was going to follow up on the previous video because I got it muddled up as usual and didn't really finish it. But I'm actually not going to finish up that one till another time because I find it too stressful in a funny kind of way, because even though that's a fairy tale, it's, I take the fairy tale seriously, so I'm not in the mood for that kind of tale. And also, I want to do it justice, because I don't feel that I actually do the fairy tales and give them full justice. But at any rate, we're spiritual beings, as I always say, even though, if you listen to some of my videos, you would say, how could she honestly sit there and say she's a spiritual being? And I wonder that myself, because I don't feel like a spiritual human being. I don't act like one all the time. And I feel nothing spiritual most of the time. I feel very physical. And the physical weighs me down. And I don't feel in contact with a higher force. I think we should be, but I don't feel that. So you say, why am I making the videos, and where does it all come from? Well, I've said this before. In many ways, my conclusion of spirituality comes a lot more from actual hardcore practicality, hardcore physical reality. And that is because the matrix has become very physical for me, but in a negative physical way. So that, makes me see that the world is a matrix, but a negative matrix, a matrix that is negative in the sense that, as I've said before, it's low frequency. And even that frequency thing, how did I come to that? And others have said these same things, but I still come to it myself, because I don't think, as I've said before, I don't think that you can really... Look, some people can listen to, I don't know, spiritual preachers, guru type people. I've seen a few videos myself very recently on this, because I've never been, like I say, not along that line. But I haven't come to my conclusion or the way I see things now based on listening to something else. In the past, I could have listened to these things and said, that makes a lot of sense. I would desire to be like that. I don't think I can get there, and maybe it's good, but it's not for everyone because we live in a physical world, etc., etc. And I was content in the physical. I personally think, even now, strange as it may seem, well, not now because the world has changed, but I still would say that in a world that is more natural and more and not a matrix, because a matrix is like a it operates. It's a functioning thing. It's not a random natural world where humans just put their input in. It's already there, and it's it's like when you're in the city, as I've said before, when you've got streets and you've got lights and you've got traffic and you've got rules, and a matrix is like that. It's like the matrix is our God, and of course it is run by a God and a minion. So that makes sense, doesn't it? But it is like that. Whereas if I was just a human in a random evolved world, shall we say, that just like even evolution, which I don't go into that sort of stuff, because obviously I personally probably would not go along the lines of evolution as we know it, or that that you evolve from an animal or something like that. No, I've always thought that was strange. But, you know, if someone presents you with evidence and says this is the case, well, of course, you tend to semi-accept it and whatever. But, I've never really, I don't think that one species evolves into another, personally. I don't think a cat evolves into a dog, put it that way, or an elephant evolves into a bird. I just don't think that. Obviously, if you can find similarities, okay, you can do that. But I personally don't think that happens. But like I say, it's all if you're happy with that, fair enough. But anyway, I don't know why I mentioned that even, to be honest, because like I say, I don't understand these things. I've never looked into them, right? I really haven't. And maybe over the last few months, I've seen one or two things that will, that might prove or disprove things. But either way, I'm going off. Yeah, we're spiritual. I've just said that I'm a spiritual being who doesn't live spiritually. But I was just going to say that, and this is probably not relevant and making a poor video and a mess of it as usual. But in a natural world, if we were natural human beings in a natural world only, because this is my always my bottom line thing here, so I don't deviate on that anyway. But it would not matter. I would not have to think about being spiritual. I wouldn't have to push myself like I'm doing now. Whereas I'm wanting to be. And yes, when those that possession, that Archon mind parasite, as it's called, it doesn't matter if it's right or not, because it's a good name, I think, because it is a parasite. A parasite feeds off something else, so it feeds off the human only. It doesn't feed off other things. Not to my knowledge anyway, but I don't know very much, so I could be wrong. I mean, it could. I suppose it could feed off other life forces too, but it doesn't. It doesn't get. It doesn't. The matrix isn't fed by an animal. The matrix is only fed by a human, because the human has the thinking. You could feed and get negative energy off an animal. Like you could harass it and like bullfighting, for instance. You could be like that, where you're getting negative energy off an animal to where you provoke the animal into being aggressive towards you, you know, uh, because the animal is frightened and fighting for its life. you know. If you put that same animal just in with its own kind out in nature, it's not going to do that. I wouldn't think. But anyway, gone off onto another thing too. But then again, I haven't got really anything properly planned. I've got my list of movies still here, which I only dug out just 10 minutes ago, scribbled on a bit of paper. But anyway, try to keep on track here. Oh dear. Yeah, if we were in a natural world, a natural human in a natural world, without any matrix influences, in other words, without any technology, because technology is an influence, for good or for bad. If you think it's for good, okay, fair enough. I think it is all for negative. But you know, if we were, then it wouldn't matter. I wouldn't have to strain myself I wouldn't even have to be conscious of being spiritual. I would just be in that moment and would probably be it. You know, ideally, okay? But because, in fact, the only thing that drew attention for me personally that you are meant to be a spiritual being was because I saw how negative the Matrix was and how the Matrix was working overtime against me to make me into, to where I will do things that I don't really, at a conscious level, even want to do. And then that made me go back over my life in a memory kind of way. Who knows how true even that is in this mixed up world, to where, you know, I would like say, yes, well, I did a lot of negative things, and why did I do that when I now can see that perhaps they were all wrong? I could see why I did them at the time, of course, but at the same time I'm saying, and it's not like I was saying, hey, yes, I was such an angel then that why would I have done that? No, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that, you know, I can now see that it didn't work in my favour over time anyway, and it didn't work in others' favour, and that it was a setup of the Matrix, because the Matrix is a game-playing setup world. And you know, it gets the negative energy of the negative situations. And also then it keeps you playing and it keeps you in the Matrix. And the more negative you get, the more negative the Matrix can then become, to where it can then possess. Yes, possession can take place at low frequency. When you're very angry and you can't concentrate and you can't see the Matrix, in other words, you can't see the whole situation. The Matrix is the situation around you, the environment around you. You can't place it all together in that brief moment. You react. And you react with defenses. You react aggressively because you feel threatened. Even if it's by a dog, yes, an animal even. Because if you know that the Matrix has possessed you, but is also possessing the animal, because we can all be possessed, anything can be possessed. And I would think that it would be easier to possess some animals than even some people, because, you know, we do have the mind to be able to think a little bit about our reactions and our decision. But even so, reaction takes place very quick. But I'm not making sense here. Okay, I know I say this is all fantasy and stuff, but hey, this is not a fairy tale I'm talking about now. This is my muddled up life. So yes, you could say it's a bit negative and a bit messed up, but I'm not doing a fairy tale at the moment. I might get onto one though if I can, but you know, not unless you believe that my Archon Mind Matrix Mad World is a fairy tale. And in a funny kind of way, it could even be. but we're still here in this reality, and I'm still playing it. So if I'm dreaming, some people say the dreaming, and look, this only occurred to me recently based on my own reality. Like, when do you know when a nightmare is real or if it isn't? Because when you're in it, it feels real, doesn't it? So you know how sometimes when you're dreaming, I've often thought this myself when I've dreamt, because we all dream. Some dream more than others, I would think. Sometimes but some dreams are very real, and other times when you're dreaming, you're actually aware that you're in a dream. You know, you're conscious, conscious, unconscious, I don't know what I'm talking about, conscious, unconscious even, but you know, when you are actually dreaming, sometimes you're kind of aware that you're dreaming, and so you have more control over the dream, whereas other times you think it's real and you feel that you have no control over the dream. This is more like nightmares, though, I'm talking about more now. And to be quite frank, I haven't had very many pleasant dreams for quite a number of years now. So, not that I ever did have. I'll have to say this. I don't know why I'm getting so personal here, but hey, this is okay because I'm talking to a select few at the most, and you know, so it's okay. Otherwise, I would not be making the videos like this if I didn't sort of think that I'm just really talking to a very small, it's almost just like talking to a group of people that you know, even though I don't know everyone. But otherwise I wouldn't put them like this. I would keep it a lot more, I don't know whether clinical's the word, I'm trying to find the right word, but you know, to where it makes more sense, to where it's more like a proper presentation like others do. Or at least the more, or at least those of the Matrix do. Yes, those of the Matrix do. I want to say that because, see, obviously I am in the Matrix, but I'm not of the Matrix. Well, even that's not totally true because the Matrix definitely has me, as they said in the movie. But if you follow what I'm saying, is that I don't. I'm not a part of the Matrix in the sense that I don't get paid by the Matrix. I don't understand. I don't consciously, know that I'm presenting, that I'm an actor. You know, I know I'm not a paid actor. You know, whereas those are the Matrix. Are paid actors. You know, they know it's a fairy tale. They know it's a stage play, and they are acting in it, and they get paid for that, and that is their job. That is their occupation. That's their life. And many of them believe in the Matrix too. So it's another thing too. Like if you are, like if you worship the Matrix God, common sense. Yes, of course, you would be quite happy to play for the god, even though you know that you're acting. You still see that is a good thing to do because you think the end justifies the means. So you say, well, even though I might be acting, that's okay because this is the Matrix. This is the God's world, and I'm meant to do this because this will get others to worship and be part of the Matrix and part of that world and keep the frequency low and keep this world going. Because heaven forbid that we should want the mad Matrix to not keep going. I mean, that would be terrible, wouldn't it? Because it would be no fun. There would be no fun for anyone, and there would be no negative energy, and also we wouldn't be able to get the negative energy. We wouldn't be able to survive because we need the negative energy to survive and keep the Matrix going. The Matrix is a living organism in a funny kind of way, if you want to look at it that way. But it's living the same way that humans are living, except that humans are, not living as much because they are the fuel for the Matrix. They are food for the gods, if you want to look at it that way. in the matrix, because they're at the bottom of the thing. They are the source of all for the matrix. But like I say, the matrix is it is a mind parasite, because it's a mind. The matrix is a mind of the God, with its minions, because they make up different denominations and things, but they're go back to the previous video. That is like another version of what could be the matrix God, or how the matrix God became the God of this matrix. Because I think that every matrix being, in other words, any matrix being is a being or a person, a human-like person, that represents the matrix God. The matrix God is not here as an entity exposing itself and saying, I am your God, I run this matrix, so therefore, you follow the matrix. No, it's more like its children run the matrix. Anyone who's anyone in this world is a representation or a disciple or a follower or a child, if you like, because I'm sure there's all different versions. I don't understand this fully yet, but also I don't want to complicate things. Even if I did know, it's best to, I like to keep everything simple. I prefer to keep things simple for myself, and I hope that the people that listen to me are, I was about to say simple-minded, but that's really not the case. But if you're doing a fairy tale, you have to keep it simple, because it's weird, because, see, like I say, we live in a reverse world. So, I do fairy tales for children, but hey, I'm not really doing fairy tales for children. This real world is full of children. Psychopaths that are children. Whereas I do fairy tales for the most advanced, really, even though I'm not that myself and I talk silly and it's simple and don't really get it right. But even some of maybe you that are not got it, the whole picture, and not getting it right like myself, you're still way above, in a funny kind of way, the real children of the matrix, or the matrix God. Well, there again, I perhaps don't have that full picture either, but certainly many that are the children of the matrix God. In other words, just even if you're just working for the matrix, they're innocent in the sense that they may or may not, fully acknowledge the God or the matrix itself. This earth may not fully understand it. I don't fully understand it either, of course, but I do know it's a matrix, whereas some people still think it's a natural ball earth, and, I don't think it is. Even if it was a natural ball world, it would still be a matrix to me, because it's still operated as a game. Even all of nature would still be controlled, and it would still be being manoeuvred. Even if it wasn't manoeuvred by technology, it would be manoeuvred some other way, maybe by, I don't know, maybe just by influence, or by other humans that have more power and more authority, or more more position or more, like the chief of a tribe or something, obviously has more sway than, it's like that. A leader has more control than the people under. The king has more power than its subjects. The Matrix God, who covers it all. Matrix God will be a king, a queen, or whatever it wants to be. But it is that too, because it would have to be a different thing to a human. See, I only think in terms of human. But that's only because I don't understand the Matrix, and because I'm under the delusion that the world and this Earth Matrix has only been run by humans, and that humans are the only species, and that humans are this and that. Now, I say they are the all. But in the Matrix, they are not the all. They are the very least, because it's a reverse world. So, it doesn't matter that humans have many abilities, and may even have more abilities than the representations of the God. They may be a lot less in their own real talent, because it works like this. In my fantasy, or in my opinion, or in my view, or in my way of looking at things, or my idea, or whatever, or my belief, whatever you want to use the word, because I have to cover it all, because I'm in a mad matrix, and you have to try to get the right words and stuff, because people jump on you like bees on a honey. I don't know, on a honey pot or something. I don't even know what I'm talking about here. See, I actually get so muddled up and so frustrated by the matrix. I really do. You have no idea. Like frustration is not the word. Like it could drive you to insanity. But you see, a real human can never be insane. That's the funny thing. It can drive you to extremes of emotion, and can make you do things that you, because you can't stand the matrix, because the matrix is it's a bit like if you are a spiritual being and you see something that goes against what you think is spiritual, you get very upset, and it's kind of like that. Also, humans are meant to be they're meant to be free in nature and stuff, and some get very claustrophobic, shall we say, in the matrix. Now, some people would say, why would you be claustrophobic? I can travel and go overseas and this and that and all the rest of it. We'll say that's because because you haven't seen the matrix. Okay, so there might be some people who might still be able to go overseas and see the matrix and might not care, just as some people don't mind, a video camera watching them, on the street, for instance. They actually see that as security, makes them feel safe. Whereas another person might see that as like a peeping Tom, like myself, It just depends on your viewpoint and how you feel about things, how safe you feel one way or the other. Do you feel that your life is threatened and the video camera will save your life? Then it makes you feel safe. But if you feel that is actually spying on you or perving on you, if you know what I mean, then you don't feel safe. So it depends on your viewpoint. And some people might be somewhere in the middle where they say, oh, well, it's got its good side and its bad side, and it works out, a compromise to where, oh, well, okay, rather, what's more important? Me feeling, I don't know. Also, you get used to things anyway, whatever. The matrix is, it's like, I've known people that like the matrix. In other words, they like the high, congested city life as opposed to going out more into a natural nature. They're of the matrix very much, if you want to look at it that way. But either way, I've gone off the track. Not making any sense as usual. May not put the video out. I usually only put it out because I put it out for a different reason these days, because if only one person's listening, that's okay, because at least they might just like to know that someone is still here almost, which is pretty pathetical, I know, but it's the truth. But anyway, where was I? Yeah, the minions, the representatives of the Archon God, the children of the Archon God. They may not have very much thinking ability even sometimes. It doesn't matter, because the Archon God will give them everything from the Matrix. The Archon God will provide them with the human thought. So that means it's like this, I think. Okay, I'll use myself as an example. I'm sitting here. I think something. That thought goes out. It should go out to other human beings, but it doesn't go out to other human beings because there is less of them. There is more of the Matrix, and the Matrix is it is made up of many minds, but it is like one mind, because they're not like human beings, that although human beings are connected to other human beings, as I've said before, individually they are still complete and they have no need of another human being. It's just nice, a bit like Adam in the garden. He could have survived on his own. He was a complete human being. He only was given Eve for company, because it was nice, if you want to look at it that way. It might have helped him expand himself in some ways. Exchange, I don't know what I'm talking about here, but you know what I'm saying is, but he could have theoretically just stayed on his own if he wanted. He didn't need the other mind. He didn't need other minds, whereas the Matrix needs other minds. The Matrix is a one mind that consists of individual minds, whereas a human being is one whole mind. It doesn't need other human beings to expand its mind or to get thoughts from other human beings. It's just nice for them to converse, as I'm doing now. And if I wasn't in a Matrix, it becomes a bit of a need in the Matrix, because it's such a fantastic mind confusing world. But in a natural, normal environment, there wouldn't be a need for me to converse with another human being. It would just be a choice. But the Matrix needs it, because the Matrix doesn't function as a whole mind unless it gets from a human. So the Matrix is a mind parasite of the human, because I think a thought, or you think a thought, if you're a human, okay, and the Matrix receives the thought instantly. I don't have to speak it, it just have to think it. And the Matrix gets the thought. And then the Matrix regurgitates my thoughts, deciphers them, and then gives the thoughts to its representations, to its children. It's like, here, this is an interesting human thought, child. You are my child. You have this human thought, and then you put it out to your children and to even other humans so they will worship you and admire you and like you. And then the matrix goes round and it keeps the matrix going. Because, you know, if I'm a parent, I'm not going to give my thoughts to a human before I give it to my own offspring, because the human is not of the matrix, whereas my child is of the matrix, and this is our home, because this earth is ours now. Like that movie The Others. Oh, I've gone off track again, I know, I'm so sorry. You know, but I had it there. I was going to do a thing on it because I saw it a few years ago, The Others, where, you know, the lady in that thinks that everything is real and that she's doing all these things, whereas in reality, it turns out that, you know, she's really dead type of thing, and her children are dead. But she has not realised that she's died, so she still thinks it's real. But even when she finds out or is faced with the harsh reality that she's killed her children, because she thinks that the real life is just too hard, that she's killed them and that they're all dead, and she's killed herself too, obviously, after killing them. When faced with that reality, she still will not leave the house, which is like her world, her reality, and it's the same with this earth matrix reality. To the God, it is, and its followers, its children, it is their matrix. This matrix is ours. This house is ours, she says at the end of the movie. So although it's really meant to be the house of the real living humans, you know, she's like, this house is ours. We will keep it. And we'll force the humans out, which is what they do generally were doing in this movie. Like imagine yourself, if you, I don't have to imagine it because I experience it in some ways. But supposing like this place was haunted, right? And it kind of is. In other words, it's inhabited by other beings that are dead. But they're dead, but they're only dead in the sense that they're not really living and not really here, but they're still there. They're in the space. They're in my space. You know, they're in the place. But they want it all for themselves. They don't want me in this place. So therefore they make my life in this place. They haunt the place, in other words. They make it uncomfortable. They make their presence known. And eventually, you know, like a lot of humans, they'll say, I don't want to be in a haunted house. This is a bit too much, you know, a bit too spooky. I think I'll move. So that's right. So this matrix earth is ours. This house is ours. You know, you have to move out. We're not moving out. We know that we're dead. We know it's not really our house. You know, like she said in the movie, she knew it wasn't really their house because other real people came and paid money to rent it even, you know, to live in it. But, like, I don't care. Don't care. We're living it. We're not moving. We're meant to move on, but we're not going to, you know. Not sure if that made any sense. That was a bit of a fairy tale, but okay, it's okay to use movies. They're fairy tales, they're fiction, whatever. But it's interesting anyway. It's fun if I don't take it too serious. Unfortunately, I take my fairy tales and my stories a bit too serious. But either way, I've gone off the track once again. That was making a bit of a point, but as usual, losing. You see, this is where I'm no good at the things, and this is where the Matrix. The Matrix representations, they make good movies, they make good They make good music, they make good representations of things, they make good speeches in every area, and they no doubt would make a good video. But what I'm saying is that's right, like I get it muddled up, but they'll piece it together and they'll put it together and present it in their own form through their own vehicles, shall we say, that will be much more attractive than me and much more concise and much more, they will represent the matrix, and they will be, and I will watch them and be enthralled, as I am and have been and do still. But what I'm trying, but because we are only here to provide little tidbits of thought, little tidbits of information, little tidbits of humanity to keep the matrix interesting and to keep it going. But we're not meant, but if we were normal, like we should be, we would be at higher frequency, so we'd be happy, I'm not sure if the matrix ones are happy. I would think that they're happy when they get the negative energy. Humans are happy when they get positive energy. So they're reverse, and we live in a reverse world. I guess that's how it works. I would imagine, but I could be wrong, but I would think that's how it would have to work if what I observe seems to be the case. But either way, I know that some of it is correct because I see it. And, like I say, you could say it's coincidence or it's the synchronicity thing that I've heard talk about. I have seen that. I see that all the time. And that is because at that point when the matrix opened up, shall we say, or came down. In my case, I always say came down, but it's, for some it opens up, for some it comes down. When it comes down, it's where you haven't sought it yourself. See, I'm not a truth seeker, as you can see. I never have been. I've always thought you just, like, if anything, just wanting to live and be yourself at some point, that is a form of truth seeking, as some probably might realise. And that is the same for the matrix, because it's possible then for the frequency to rise, and that is not a matrix, that's not a benefit to the matrix, because they don't feed off positive energy, they feed off negative energy, and then they feel positive, then they feel good, and then they can not only feel good with the negative energy because they're low frequency, but then they become almost like high frequency in themselves, you could say. And also because they get the human ideas, the human thought, the human feelings, and they can make then this fantasy matrix world that we live in, that we see when I watch a movie, or when I turn on the TV, or when I even watch anything that is technological. Basically, you can never be sure if it's part of the fairy tale or the matrix, or if it's real. Most of the time, it is not real, because it can't be, because you only have the best actors in the matrix. If you're making a movie, you only pick the best actors. You only pick the when I say the best actors, I mean the most beautiful, or the ones that, and also the ones that are your children. I'm not going to give a part to something that isn't my flesh and blood. Why should I? That would be stupid of me. You want your own to benefit, and you want your own kind to prosper, and you want, it's not a negative for the matrix to look down on some humans, because they would say, well, sure, we take from that human, but at the same time, they're like, well, that is not our kind, that is not, that human is not going to be a benefit to our Earth matrix, you know. Not, I don't think I'm putting this right. But essentially, you're just not, you're just not the family. You're not just a bit like, is that like that Godfather movie or something? You know, you've got to be of the family, you know. But that's how we are too. And that's how we've been conditioned, because we don't tend to think of ourselves as, we don't tend to think of the human race as a family, because it's too big, you see. But actually, it's not really that big at all, because there are different types of humans. As I've said before, there are different, you know, they're different types, different personalities. You know, like, is a psychopath the same as someone who is, you know, a very sensitive, empathetic type of person? You know, that worries about, you know, the psychopath will kill what the other one will try to protect, or what the other one will see as just as important as themselves, you know. So it's you know what I'm saying? So it's they're different, aren't they? They're different humans. They're not part of the same, they might be human, but they are not part of the same family or the same, I'm not putting this very well. They are different types, you know. That's just at a personality level, and there's probably many, many, many other things that would come into play in the matrix. Like, that would just be just the tip of things, really, I would think. But at any rate, the matrix is parasitic to the lower humans, because the matrix sees what is good food, good information, good idea, good, you know, something that is that can be used by the matrix to make it a better play, shall we say, because it's just one big fantasy play, stage performance all round. That is just like, you know, it's the opposite to how I would say that humans, you know, like original humans say, were probably meant to be. Because if you're in a natural world and you're natural, and you're not, you know, and you're not making a movie, shall we say, like we do now, and we watch them and everything, that's technology. You know, real humans wouldn't be aware of being watched or being filmed or playing with one another that way. You know, they wouldn't be like, oh, I'm making a movie, I've got to make millions of dollars, I've got to seduce an audience, I've got to convince them that I am this and I am that, and I've got to play a part. It wouldn't be like that, I wouldn't think. And I don't think that some humans, the very few, probably still don't bother with that. They might just say, look, they get, you know, I think I got to that point a few years ago myself, in the sense that you know, you can get to where you say, well, look, if you don't fit in, or if you, you know, how should I say it? But you can get to the point to where you say, oh, look, you still care what people think, so you'll still, like, you know, say the right things. You won't, but you don't care as much as what you would like to. In fact, sometimes you can almost get to the point to where you don't care enough at all for yourself, because you can say, well, look, if I'm not conforming, and when I say conforming, I don't mean conforming really, but I mean like a bit like how should I say, like if everyone's, if everyone has a fashion, for instance, like you wear a certain fashion and everyone generally goes along a bit with that. But like, I suppose an example of that could probably be like a little bit even before my time, but like my mother and her generation, they would have dressed a certain way, but almost everyone would have dressed that way. They didn't wear identical clothes. No, they were still individual, all different, but they would have all wore gloves when they went out. A lot of men would have always wore a hat. They might have wore a suit. A woman might have wore, they certainly wouldn't have dressed like they do now. No way would women have went out onto the street in the 40s the way they do now. That's the reverse world. In fact, that would have been like if I had walked out onto the street back in the 40s like I do now, or anyone else for that matter, but because like I say, I never did fit in too much that way, but that was because I didn't socialise, so it didn't matter. If you're going to keep yourself locked away, you don't have to conform quite as much if you stay inside as opposed to going out, if you follow what I'm saying. But either way, I've gone off. But yeah, if I'd walked out in the 40s like I am now, like you would have been regarded as a freak, and people would have laughed at you probably, but either way you would have been so uncomfortable you wouldn't do it, because you would be out of place, because you would be like, they would think there was something wrong with you, but now that is normal, you see. So it's like, not quite sure what my point was there, but you'll have to be like the Archon mind parasitic matrix. You will have to, and this is what they will do with what I've just said anyway. Because another thing about the matrix is that there is no time. See, in a funny kind of way, this is what I realise, but not because I'm clever or have worked it out that there's no time. I'm sure that some geniuses have said there's no time anyway. I think I heard that on a video a little, but it's just based on the reality that if I see a thought and then I see it, and I see that thought has already went to the matrix, in other words, that it's already out there, but I didn't put it out there. You see, I'm putting it out there now when I'm talking here, even when actually I'm not putting it out much because it's only going to a few friends, you could almost say. But supposing I was putting it, and that's a real fantasy, actually making this video and say 1 million people were listening. No, it's already out there in the millions, but someone else is putting it there. Because my very thought, there's no time. And this is where I know there's no real time. But we in the matrix, we're made to be obsessed with time. Time is our enemy. We're fighting time all the time. The matrix is all about time. But there is no time. Everything that is happening this minute has already happened in the past. And the future, in a funny kind of way, has probably already happened too, but I'm not clever enough to figure that out. But I know the past is now. So if the past is now, the future is too. Because I see the past, what I see now as a present, I actually can see, just on this technology, which shouldn't exist anyway, but it does, but it shows it very clearly with technology, that if I think something right now, I'm saying something right now, but then I go onto the computer and see that it has been on the computer for years. See, there's no time, because the thought has already went to the matrix. The matrix has utilised it, given it to its own representations, its God, its children, or whatever you want. It's like that. The human thinking is just for the matrix. It's not for other humans, because some humans no, not some humans. See, the matrix is humans, but they're humans of one mind. They're like a group mind, a collective mind. Yeah, I think I've heard that term, a collective. They're a collective of many minds, many minds, millions, billions maybe, because it's their matrix. Humans are individual minds who are as a tiny collective, because they come and go. We're meant to go, I think, but we keep coming. Not quite. I don't really know if that's true, but I think that that's a high possibility, But I also would say that because we're in the end of, like, how I said, we're towards the end of a World War III, that is why the matrix is now very different, so it's like, I don't know if it's always been where the numbers are more for the matrix or for the earth, not the natural real earth, but for this matrix earth. Okay, so I'm in delusion world. I say there's a natural earth. No, I know this is not it. I don't know what happened to it. I don't know if it ever existed. I don't know if there is another one. And we're just in the fake one, playing out some sort of devious game for some purpose. Whether we're trapped, or whether we were sent here because we're naughty, or whether we're just made to believe we're naughty. We certainly do naughty. We do, we behave like the Matrix, We behave like the Matrix even when we don't want to, as my previous video a few times ago expressed, when you become possessed. Any Matrix that has such power and such mind control and such technologically advanced, and of course technology is advanced because we're not aware of it. But also, if you're not aware of the Matrix and you but see, I was aware of the Matrix. I know when I'm being played, but I still played. So the Matrix still got me to do, or nearly got me to do, or got me to think and feel great anger and great hatred and great aggressiveness, and can even then affect your physical. Because I know there's a movie many years ago that touched on this, and yet it was just meant to be a kind of interesting crime drama. But it just come to me right this very second, strangely enough, and I can't remember the name or whatever. But there was Irresistible Impulse. That's what they said it was in the movie. They made a big song out of it because this fella murdered someone, but got off on the grounds that he was under the influence of irresistible impulse. That's possession. But they didn't say that in the movie. But it was like he did not have control over it. And yet he was not insane. By the way, I don't believe in insanity anyway, as I've said, but that's just me because I believe that fantasies and those that are classed as seeing things or getting ideas, that is just synchronicity to me. And the Matrix is all technology. So if you get a message from your TV, I see no problem in saying that is the Matrix. That is not insanity. But in the past, it was classed as being insane, and I'm sure that is already also out in the Matrix in some other video with some other more advanced being than me putting it there, because that's what I'm trying to say is that. Do you follow what I'm... See, I'm asking you, and I'm talking to a screen and saying, do you follow what I'm saying? This is ridiculous. I feel stupid doing it, but I know that I'm talking to someone, okay? But I'm still guessing that there may be others that I'm not saying you should be able to get it, because no, listening to me, you shouldn't be able to get it. But if you turn on another video or something, you'll probably get it because they'll put it just right. But, it could well be I could be the source, or someone else could be the source. It's a bit like some people write a song, but they give it to someone else to sing. The singer, not the song. I think that was another one that, Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. The singer, not the song. But the song was written by someone, but they get a better singer to sing it. But also that singer will be a singer of the Matrix, because that is, because it's now the Matrix God's Matrix. This, it's, and maybe it always was, because I don't know. Because, in my own kind of fantasy way, and this may not be a fact at all, it could be total fantasy, there could be some truth to it. I think there's some truth to every fairy tale myself. And even if there isn't, you can still get a good idea from them. They're still meant to show you something, I think. Doesn't mean that the whole story is 100% factual, no. Because fairy tales represent the Matrix God too. Every fairy tale is the Matrix God showing you what his Matrix is in a way, or how he thinks. Sometimes. There's a lot in the fairy tales that represent, particularly if you go back to my last video. I mean, even Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. The Queen is the Matrix God in a funny kind of way. And Snow White is the human, in my way of looking at it, okay? Because, anyway, I've gone off. I wouldn't say that the Queen fed off Snow White, though, because actually she just preferred to get rid of Snow White. But, that would probably be... that would depend on, I would think, But the Queen was human. The Queen was human too, but it's just that she become more, I don't know, Well, maybe she wasn't, I don't know. She did seem to look quite different to Snow White and to, but then again, she was a queen, so queens do tend to have a very regal kind of impressive demeanour. And of course, fairy tales, I'm going on and not making sense here. But either way, what I was trying to say was there's kind of no time, and that is how the Matrix is able to utilise all human thought and give it to the Matrix and then make the Matrix world out of it. Because if there was real time, like if I come up with some brilliant idea, right, put it this way, I use myself as an example, even though I don't probably come up with brilliant ideas, but supposing I come up with some idea or something, I should be able to make use of that just for my personal self first and put it there. But because there is no time and my thinking is caught, just my very thought is caught by the Matrix and it's part of the Matrix, rightly or wrongly. I say wrongly because, I don't like that technological Matrix world. But of course, if you are part of the Matrix beings and you are even a human that likes the technology, you probably may be fine with that. I don't know. But either way, it happens in a split second. So whatever comes into a human's mind is gone from their mind and to the Matrix in the blink of an eye, long before they can even press record on their device like I do here now. So humans feed the Matrix whether they like it or not. And heaven only knows what we feed with our unconscious mind, because if you can see that you feed little tidbits with your conscious mind, even synchronicity shows that, but in the sense that it's not uncommon for me to think of something and then to see it appear soon after. I mean, in the reality, like a real thing. In other words, of course, that is the human thought also creating reality. Now, this is the confusing thing, and it's confusing for me too, and I haven't figured it out. And sometimes I don't know the difference. Sometimes I don't really know, like if my thought has just brought a physical thing into being, or if my thought has been captured by the Matrix and then they have brought it into being. If you see what I'm saying, because, if human thought creates reality, which it does, but you're living in a matrix that also has access to all human thought, and it's their reality anyway, and it's a technological... they use technology for creating thought, whereas humans just do it naturally. That's my view anyway. Now, whether this is true or not is, whatever you think. Most people would say that technology would capture the thoughts like a computer and that it would create reality one way or another. I say that no, human thought creates reality, but the matrix utilises the human thought because the humans are connected to the matrix now, or connected to technology, which is what some people want to do in the future anyway. But I say they don't have to worry about doing it in the future because it is now. Because, as I've said before, the future is now. I think I got that from somewhere else, but I say it myself too, because I see that. there's no time. See, time is a construct of the matrix. I can't believe that myself, because like even now I'm thinking, oh, look, the sun's going down. Oh, I got to keep on some sort of schedule. I got to do this and that. And, even making this video, I was like today, like, oh, I don't think I've got enough time now. I'll be stressed. I'll be tired. I've got other things to do and I'm already behind and I'm drained by the matrix because it gets angry, because the God gets angry. And when the God gets angry, he makes the minions and the disciples angry. And then when they get angry, they get loud, they get aggressive. And they're like children with naughty little minds. They play pranks. But like children play pranks and can even do some really evil little things, you're not dealing, when you deal with a child that has the power of technology in their hands as well. In other words, like humans now, or the humans that are of the matrix, like they if they get angry and decide to play a trick, they can use technology to create havoc. Even if it's only by beeping the horn of their car or zooming up and down with their motorbike at the highest pitch they can think of. Even if it's like a plane deciding to go low over a house, to create negative energy and to create noise, etc. Whereas like children, they can do some naughty little things. But what I'm trying to say is it's still the same mindset, because a lot of humans have got the mindset of a child, and the deviousness of a child, but also the intelligence or the knowledge of the matrix. It's a bit hard to explain, but it's like they've got all the all the information that they can use to play naughty tricks on humans if they want to, and they want to because they get angry. I don't think I've explained that very well, but you know what I mean. It'd be like if you gave a child a gun. They wouldn't hesitate to fire it because they wouldn't see any harm in it. They don't have the concept or the realisation that they cause real harm. And even if they did, they probably still do it because, they live in the moment and the fun. They think it's fun. How children enjoy playing tricks on adults in particular. Well, the children of the Matrix see humans as like adults, and they're like, oh, adults restrict us, or adults tell us what to do, or adults they've got a mindset. Obviously we don't, but to their way of thinking, there might be things that bug them. They might even have no reason, even a bit like bullying. Sometimes there's no reason for people to bully others, but it's all just part of their conditioning too. I don't understand all the Matrix minions or the disciples. I don't understand it. I don't understand human beings. I don't understand the whole lot of it, really. I now only keep it simple and say that, and this is coming to me very late in life, that you can... I've seen some people, not very many, because there's not, and it's hard to tell because, like I say, it's a game and a stage play in this Matrix anyway, so it's impossible to tell sometimes. The difference between a real human and a Matrix player is that the Matrix player is an actor. They do the same thing as a human, but they don't do it from the heart, shall we say. But it appears that they do. But they do it to serve themselves. Whereas if a real human does it, and I say a real one because even I have not really been a real human in many ways. In other words, where you do something just because, you might do something for someone else, just because, it makes them feel good. It doesn't really benefit you. In fact, if it does benefit you, it's because you like them and you want to see them smile a bit, And the Matrix doesn't really encourage this type of thing at all. In fact, the Matrix discourages it, And so I think that most of the time we lose sight of this and don't actually, we get more of a buzz if we get something for ourselves or do something for ourselves, which is understandable in a way, but it is still very much of the Matrix, But either way, that's not making sense because, I really feel when I make these videos, I'm very apprehensive about it, not only because I bungle it and they're very poor, but mostly because the few things I do say can, as I've said before, be taken a number of ways. Everything you say and do in the Matrix can be taken more than one way. Now, the Matrix knows this too. So a lot of what I say even will be taken in a context that I don't particularly want it to be taken in. My only hope is that, it's a good and a bad thing that I don't have many people listening, because if I had more people listening, they could easily take it as being part of the Matrix or the Matrix ideas or what others in the Matrix have said, and therefore I am really... because if I say something that is similar to the Matrix representative, and the Matrix representative gets the credit, but some of what I say is the same as that, because that's how the Matrix works. I don't know if I'm explaining this very well, then I am... adding to the Matrix idea. I'm fueling the Matrix. I'm empowering the Matrix. Even though my actual idea might not really be the same. In other words, it might be similar and it might appear to sound to be the same, but it's... Because, you see, the truth is the truth, and the truth also will be part of the Matrix, because you can't keep a Matrix going on 100% lies. It has to be, in other words, you can't have a stage play if everyone sees it as a stage play. It has to be convincing. It has to be real. It has to be human. It has to be. Otherwise, people lose interest and then they start to see the Matrix, and then it's not so much fun to play. People only play while they believe in it. You're not going to play a game if you think it's rigged, or if you think that, you can't win. You know what I mean? If you don't know that, like if you were going to play a tennis match, you're not going to play against someone that you know is number one in the world. You're not going to play against someone that is not of the same physical capacity or similar to yourself. You're not going to play if you know that the lines person is going to call in, out, if you follow what I'm saying. I'm not very much of an expert on tennis, but I know a few basics, You know what I'm saying? You're not going to play a game of tennis if the technology, because they even use technology in tennis and sports these days, you probably noticed, which I don't agree with, but of course I don't, because I don't agree with technology, as you say. Of course you wouldn't. But of course it does make it more accurate, So we're told, and sure, there's some truth to that, but I still think that it don't matter, but that's just me. But either way, you wouldn't play a tennis game if you thought that technology was going to give a wrong call, shall we say. Because you have that line on the tennis thing where now it's technological to where they can tell you technically, and they can slow things up to see if it goes on this side. That the human eye is no longer regarded as the be and end all. No, technology can see better than us. Well, I say that, okay, so it can sometimes. Yes, my eyesight's no good either. Yes, of course, I can't see that. But, I might have a sixth sense to actually know if some things about that game aren't right. But not if I'm of the Matrix, because I won't question it. And I won't, it will be a different reality. It's like, why would that be? See, even with this reality, it's only as much as what you believe is possible. The minute you get even like with myself, to where I say, look, that hey, if it's a fairy tale and it's a big fantasy, and I don't have really any control about it, and I don't understand technology, then you do sort of say, well, hey, look, a lot of things are possible. Anything could be possible. That's, you might not like that. I know I don't, because you do like to think that there is a certain reality, or at least what you've been conditioned and told and, is reality. But that's just what you've been told. If you're not told if you're not told how something works, and you're not told, and you don't understand it, and you don't, because we don't understand this reality. I don't know how it works. I don't know the science of it, even if there is a science of it. But I know that human beings are a big part of it, and that is just based on what I see. But I don't know how they do it. I don't know how the Matrix does all these things. No. But, I don't understand how the very basics of technology work. I don't understand how the mobile phone that I'm using works. But I know it's there, that's all. But the fact that I don't understand it makes me worried. Whereas most people, they're comfortable with that, But like I say, if humans sort of thought or realised that their thinking can actually bring things into existence in a funny kind of way, if they actually realised that and thought it was a fact, which they don't, and which you can't do at random anyway, because you're in a matrix, because there's interference, because your thoughts are grabbed by the matrix before you can even visualise. Now, I'm not saying that some humans don't still have some abilities, but their abilities are largely harnessed by the matrix. So, I don't think I put that very well, no. So, but anyway, there's, if you can comprehend that there's no time, which even I can't, and I admit that, I say these things and I see them to be true, I believe them to be true, I know them to be true, but I still live in the time and I still live in the physical. Because in this reality, you can't not live in time. You can't not live in the physical. And actually, maybe if it wasn't a matrix, it wouldn't matter, and maybe it would be okay. I think it would still be a really good kind of earth, whatever it is, even if it's only, even if it's not as real or whatever. But either way, I don't think I made a good point there, and I was going to. But either way, also, I was going to say that I think, there is still, even in the Matrix, if you buy this whole Matrix thing and you buy the idea or the concept or the reality, depending on how you think it is. If you think it's a possibility, if you're like me where you say it's a reality, that's a different matter too, Fairy tales are reality for me, either way. But either way, but that doesn't matter, right? Even in this reality, whether it's real, whether it's a matrix, whether it's fantasy, whether it's a dream, whatever people want to say, because these are all things that get pushed out there. And hey, I'm so confused now, I would say that they're all intermingled. And that's what makes it even more difficult for us to accept and get our head round, because it isn't just one thing. It's a bit like saying there's something wrong in the world, or something is a game, or something has been misrepresented, or someone has stolen someone else's song and sung it. I say it's everything. So that's what makes it confusing. If it was just a few things, you could get your head round it, and you'd understand it too, and you'd probably accept it. But because it's everything, and because it is a minefield of the mind, and because it is and because it's a parasitic matrix that, a mind parasitic matrix, where others feed off your mind, literally, that makes it, that confuses the whole thing to where you can't see it as a reality, because because it just doesn't fit our idea of reality, and it doesn't fit mine either. I see some bits of it, but I still don't. Like I say, I still have to buy into a certain amount of the physical reality, because if something's right in front of you, you can't just look at it and say, this is a dream, it's not real, or this is a game. Well, I can very distinctly say that it's a game. I have no problem saying it's a game, but distinguishing whether it's a dream and how much is the same reality. Because look, I'm saying this, and some people might disagree with this too, and that's fair enough. I'm saying I think I am real. I think that I am natural. These are only words too, but I'm saying I think I am different to the Matrix. And I think I'm different to some other people, and other people are different to me. Whether you think one is better or worse or whatever, that's not really relevant. I don't think it matters. I don't care about that. I'm saying, that I think there is an original human, and they create. They don't know that they create. They don't know that everything springs from them, and that they underestimate themselves and worship the Archon representatives instead. Instead of them seeing themselves as a source of stuff, they see the Matrix as the source. They see the Matrix God and its minions as the gods. they idolise the ideas of the minions just because the minions are able to present the ideas better, or and don't forget that they're not just one idea of one human. They can take ideas from the small human group and place those ideas into one representative. So the one representative comes across as the genius God, because, you know, that's how it kind of works. I don't know if I'm putting it the right way. I'm not getting it across, I don't think. It's hard to explain. It's hard for me to, you know, because I don't see it. I see it, the result of it, but I don't see how they do it because I don't understand technology. I don't even understand. I'm only just understanding, you know, just what it was to be human and to see myself as remotely even spiritual, as you can see. So it's, you know, it's a different thing. But if we knew these things, it wouldn't probably be so difficult. But I still don't think that it's, I don't think it's how it's meant to be. But it's meant to be if you are of the matrix, because if you believe and if you actually are just a part of a whole, a bit like if you're part of a gang or a club, and you consider that club and that gang more important than you think that you function best as part of that group, just like if you're part of a church or a club or any sort of organisation, or I don't know, even if it was just a hobby group. You know, like I've often thought I never have, but I've often thought, wouldn't it be nice to be part of a few people that had a similar hobby? You know, you're sharing it. You're not the whole, whereas like I would just do that hobby on my own. Not as much fun actually, but I don't think I'm making this point very well. But either way, you know, you've got a lot more ideas if you're a group, haven't you? You've got the ideas of many humans. The only difference is that in the reality, the matrix, you know, doesn't have their individual ideas in their group themselves. That's more of a human thing. But they're more like, the matrix is more like a computer, where it takes all the ideas of all humans that put into the computer, and then the computer becomes smarter than the human. But it's not smarter, it's just that it's took all from all the humans and is able to make itself appear to be better because it's taken from the source of the human. And then the human bows down to the computer god, shall we say, if you want to look at it like you know, like if I want to know something, I get the computer and think it knows more. But it's really all human. Without a human being, there would be no computer. I don't mean that a human invented the computer, no, because that's probably not true either, but not one human anyway, but maybe not even a human, you know, maybe the matrix gives humans technology, I believe, because the matrix is technology. It comes from the Archon matrix God entity. You know, I don't use a name for this being or its collective or whatever, but, you know, I'm sure it's had names and there may even be a correct name, and, you know, I can't, you know, I choose not to. I did my previous video on the possibility sort of thing, you know, but you know, I don't, but I would imagine it has been around as long as humans. And therefore, if, I don't even know human history really, but if you go down through the ages, I would imagine humans have worshipped different gods. Now, whether this is the same God under different names down through eons of time, I think eons is a good word, I'm not sure what it entirely means, but in other words, vast periods of time since the beginning, or at least since the beginning of a human, And I think it's time for me to fold up because, yes, time is beating me here. I can see that the sun is glaring there, and that means that it is soon going down. And I am on the wrong time slot as usual. See, time controls humans, but time doesn't exist. Time is of the Matrix, because the Matrix controls humans, if you want to look at it that way. Because, see, if I was in my fantasy, imaginary, original Earth, the natural Earth, where there is no time because there really is no time anyway, then it wouldn't matter when I made a video. And I wouldn't have to be aware of that. And, I could probably just send it by my mind instead of by the mind of the mind of technology, which is not a human mind. Now, some people might differ with this. I have heard a few, I was about to say funny videos, over the last few months. And there is total logic to the idea, I suppose, that none of us are really human or natural, and that it is all technology or a type of intelligence that is not like I imagine humans, that I have been conditioned to believe that I am a natural human being, but that I am not. I just don't buy that, personally. Or maybe, you might say, well, you don't want to buy it. You can't accept it. Quite true. I don't care. I'm going to go down with my fantasy if that is the case, okay? That's just the way it is. But, there is still truth to that too, because if you are a human that, like we are now, hooked up almost to technology, and yes, like time, and like not in this natural world where you can just do things as you want to, and you yourself, if you were, in my way of looking at a higher capacity, to where you wouldn't need a computer, to where you just as a human being are a natural computer, if you want to look at it that way. See, to me, it's like, okay, you can say, some people can say to me, well, I don't because I don't communicate with them, but I've seen videos anyway where some people might say, and these are people that I would respect too, by the way. They're much more advanced than me in knowledge and in their thinking. But there's just something that makes me feel uncomfortable when they say that, yes, that they are that humans are not really natural anyway, and that it's all really a type of technology, and that it's just that we don't understand it. And I've no doubt about that, because I don't understand even natural, really, that's right. But I do think there is a difference. Now, I can't see any difference between that person and myself, and I would have more respect for that person in some ways than myself. and they even talk about spirituality and a lot of the stuff that I've said and more. So I don't get it that then we can say it's, I suppose, you could. See, I'm confusing myself here now because this is what I'm saying. There's so many good ways of looking at these things that make such sense and that even have a physical basis that can almost be proven in a funny kind of way. But I do think there is a natural computer and an artificial computer. The two do the same thing. They appear to be the same. They could even present the illusion of spirituality even. But I think that I just personally think that those that want to merge those two, that believe they're one and the same, even though that being, that human, could be more spiritual than me on the surface and may even believe themselves to be spiritual, maybe more spiritual, more religious than what I could ever be. I still personally believe that just their very acceptance of artificial technology and that they accept that that's reality and that is the path to and is meant to be used for spirituality, meant to be used for, what would you say, enlightenment or whatever you like, whatever that is. I just do not, I cannot, for some reason, think that this is a benefit or that it is the true reality. Now, whether it is true for some and not true for others, that there are differences, that's a different question. That could well be true. Is it possible that there are more than one path to so-called enlightenment? To so-called, the highest spirituality, whatever that is? You know what I mean? Is that possible? I would think not, but there will definitely be two paths. Maybe even more than two, but there will be two paths. And I suppose it depends on, it really does depend on what the bottom line of the fairy tale or the play is or the movie is. Like, what is the real truth of it? Like, what is really going on? And that's where we would all differ in our view of this reality or what is, what is spiritual. But see, I just can't go along any technological line just for the simple reality for me that if I say that human thought does create reality, well then for me there's just no need of all that. So therefore I don't buy into that technological thing as much. Now some people might say that's because you don't realise that you are in a matrix that is artificial and that you are artificial and that it's all artificial. See, some people might say that. This is what I've heard recently. And I would have no answer for that, and that makes sense. I just don't believe it. You say, well, that's just because you're backward. You only believe in the nature. No, I don't. I know that the other exists. I've already said we're in a technologically advanced matrix that takes the human thought and all this sort of stuff. I've said this, and I know it's true. But it's because of that I say that humans don't need that, that's all. That's all I'm saying. Whereas some humans think they need it, or they think it's a betterment or a benefit. I just don't think that, that's all. Because I think that we are a complete unit that was already originally equipped with everything they needed. They didn't need any additives, they didn't need any changes, they didn't need any enhancements. They didn't need to do anything at all because it was already perfect, you could say. Also, I don't believe in changing things anyway, as you can well imagine. Like, I don't think that any species on this earth was meant to be something different. I think that a cat is equipped to be what a cat is. A dog is equipped, that's perhaps not a good example. I'll keep off the dogs for now, I think. But certain animals, a bird was meant to fly. A bird is equipped to fly. It doesn't need anything. It doesn't need to learn to fly. It doesn't need an artificial wing. It doesn't need technology. It's equipped with its own natural radar, its own natural technology. An aeroplane is a pathetical imitation by comparison. An abomination, if you like. I found that word recently. I'm not sure where it comes from. Some religious thing, no doubt. But hey, if a word fits, I don't care where it comes from. I don't have to be of that denomination to say that is correct, okay? I'm not here to, might sound as though I am. I don't know where I get my energy from because I was exhausted before I started the video. But sometimes I get angry. And angry can give you, can drain you, but it can still give you a slight spurt. I suppose it'd be like if you thought you were breathing your last breath, you might still try to make one last effort. But anyway, but you see what I'm saying is that, I don't personally I don't think that we're meant to manipulate nature. Some people think it's fine, especially if they think that it is to benefit you. I don't believe in any of that. I used to, and I used to think that, oh well, if you can learn something from an animal to where you can benefit yourself, why shouldn't you? Well, no, I don't think that anymore. And I also don't think, I think that when your time is up, it's up. You're given a certain stay in this earth matrix. And if my life was a lot better, I might actually, if I was living in a more natural world to where I was unaware of the matrix, I might be actually able to be under the delusion that everything is worth prolonging for a vast amount of time, and therefore I might say, oh yeah, I like this natural thing, but maybe it's okay for me to use something artificial to prolong my stay because I'm having such a ball. Sadly, I don't feel that way, but whether I would be tempted if I was, and certainly that's why some of the matrix, people that are of the matrix, that enjoy the matrix and that benefit from the matrix, of course they do tend to do this, and they think that is a good thing to do. They don't have any problem about manipulating nature or manipulating anything, as you can see, because even we are the food for the gods or for the matrix anyway, if you want to look at it that way. And so many people think that humans are meant to contribute to the earth, to the matrix. I don't hold to that because I don't like the matrix, because the matrix to me is artificial. But, would I want to contribute to a natural earth? Well, I don't even know what that would be like now because it's long gone, but I would think that it would just be automatic because the human would just be, it's a bit hard to explain, and even I can't really imagine it in a way, but it would just be, your thought is creating the thinking. So that's what you are, and you know that's what you are, and you know that's what you're doing. So you're not part of the Matrix is totally different to my fantasy world of what originally was or should have been or could have been. I don't even care if it's a fantasy. I don't even care if it isn't and it never was. I still think it should be. But that makes me delusional if that's the case. Well, that's okay. But I cling on to my fairy tales and my delusions. And even in the face, like I say, I have heard some say that, hey, what if you are not really natural? That what you think is organic or natural is really just, like in the Matrix movie, just letters and numbers and things. And that could well be true. Can't say. How do I know? I'm not there, and no one else seems to know either. But I can't help it. I still cling on to my fantasy, my delusion, if you like. And because to me that would just be like the human thought creates reality. So, sure, it could be like that. But I don't know. I think that it could be still like letters and numbers. Sure, it could be. But I still think that is a natural part of a human. Or maybe I've got something wrong here. I don't know. Maybe I have. Either way, it matters, but it also doesn't matter, because whichever way you look at it, the Matrix, unless you're part of the Matrix, if you want to be a singular individual human being, you can't be in the Matrix. You have to be part of the Matrix. You have to be part of the collective, because that's how the Matrix works. Now, if you're happy with that, see, I'm not just talking about like being friends with other human beings. I'm talking about where your mind, I'm not just talking about sharing. See, to me, I live in the old-fashioned natural world. Well, I don't. No, I don't. But I think that's how I want it to be. I wouldn't mind being more sociable and chatting to friends and sharing ideas openly and honestly, verbally, or even if there was a mind connection. But this other Matrix thing, it bothers me. I don't find it natural. I don't find it second nature. I don't find that I don't know why, but maybe I just think it's a different group. Maybe it's like saying, oh, look, I want to be in a group that does this or that. I want to be in I suppose it's a bit like different churches. Not everyone wants to belong to the same church. Not everyone wants to belong to the same club. Not everyone wants to belong to the same sport. I'm like, I don't like this sport. This is not a sport I want to play in. That's all. I don't understand it. I don't like it. My natural sport is swimming. I don't want to play golf. That sort of thing. It's like that. It's like I understand golf. And yes, I can play it if I'm forced to. And I can enjoy it at some level. But I don't really think it's a benefit to me. Whereas swimming might be a benefit to me. That's just an example. It's not a very good example, I know. I'm sorry, I just can't think these things off the top of my head. I'm sure the Matrix can decipher them and say, that's a good idea, but we can use a better example than what she did. That's how the Matrix works. It'll say, well, that was a good idea, but she didn't get it quite right. No, we can better up on that. We can use a better example. She couldn't come up with the quick example in the split second, but still the idea was not bad. We'll use that. We'll throw that in somewhere. We'll give it to someone. We'll we'll throw it around our collective matrix world and make something of it. You know, that's how the matrix works. You know, it's kind of like that, but I'm not putting it very well. And but it really means that every little human thought is of value to the matrix. It is like because see, the matrix, I think, this is my own way of looking at it now, and I'm not sure if it's 100% right, but I don't think the matrix itself or even the humans that are part of the matrix, that work for the matrix, that belong to the matrix, that worship the matrix and its God and its world, because they have become very physical, and this is just putting it in a blunt way, but I don't even know if it's true, because I don't understand it. I'd say that. I don't understand all beings. I don't understand even all humans. I don't understand a psychopath. I know they exist. I've dealt with them. I see them. But I understand them only by my observations and my dealings, and by a little bit of information if it backs up my personal experience. And I experience their way of looking at the world when I become possessed, because they're possessed all the time. Yeah, they're always negative because they like the negative. They're not constructive. They're more destructive. They're more negative energy as opposed to positive. I don't know whether I'm putting this right. I'm not, as usual. But sorry, I can't concentrate. The planes coming. Well, see, that's what I mean. That's the plane is the matrix. That's a negative energy because it's noisy, it's wrong vibration, it's intrusive, it's technological. I know it gets people around, but if you take away the fact that it can get you from one point to another, everything else about it is kind of low frequency and negative, especially if it's coming over the top of your house, you know. But, you know, that's right. If it wasn't coming over the top of my house, I used to look at planes and think, oh, they're nice. You know, I used to think, oh, I wouldn't mind getting a picture of a plane. Of course, I always thought birds were better and natural, whatever. But I still thought, hey, that's still pretty good. And isn't it? And humans must be clever to think up something to mimic a bird, you know. But they have to, you see, because the matrix, you know, has to do that. But I'm sure there's more to it than that too, because I actually do think that humans are limited. Because I think if you're limited in one ways and you can see it, why not assume that you could be very limited in many ways? And so then the matrix gives you a substitute for your natural abilities, you know, but it appears to be good, but it is a substitute. And you know, it's like I say, a plane's nice, but a bird is vastly superior to a plane. I've said that before, you know. But where was I? I think. I think I better fold up because I'm getting myself confused anew. I did have a thought there, but it went when I went off onto the bird, and you know, because I had to once again reiterate how vastly superior humans are and how unique and wonderful they really are and should be and should have been, and how now, you know, we're in a matrix where, you know, we think that humans, well, it's not so much even that a lot of humans might think that they're less, but they do think that it's okay to manipulate nature. They do think it's okay to add on to themselves. They do think it's okay to use technology to better themselves, to improve themselves, to even help themselves in many ways. I just don't personally think this was meant to be or should be or is really a benefit. And look, if you want to say to me, yes, but what if technology can extend my life? Well, I say, well, yeah, that would be nice. Well, actually, I don't think it is nice anymore. But if, like I say, if I was living like the Matrix gods, or the Matrix demigods, should I say, in other words, those that are favoured by the Matrix, where they're living a very good life and enjoying all this physical reality, because there is really much to enjoy in the physical reality. If you're allowed to enjoy it, if you can get to it, if you can afford it, if you have that freedom, which is allotted to the favoured ones. They're like spoilt children. They're like favoured ones. They're like what's that? Where the class favourite, the one where the teacher really likes one kid above all the others. They're like that, which is what happens in this world, then of course, you might think, oh, well, the physical becomes very important and you're enjoying it so much because you've got so many wonderful physical things, because the physical reality is and should be for human beings a pleasure. It should be something to be enjoyed. They should be able to enjoy it all the time. Most of the time, you're only allowed to enjoy little bits of it. Even nature, should be enjoyed. I've gone off the track here, but the physical reality is, like I say, if you could extend your physical reality, like say with technology, to extend your life, to extend your enjoyable life to another 50, 100 years of more enjoyment or something, you wouldn't hesitate probably to use technology if it was available to do this. Now, I'm not sure what I think about that. So this is the danger or the temptation of technology too. Now, most people would say, oh, we don't like what she's saying because she's going to deprive us of an extension of life. And I get that. But that is because you believe that there is nothing, if your life was finished now, that you're not a spiritual being, that you don't go on. That's another point too, you see. And I can't remember ever having been on or been here before. But as I say, if you are a spiritual being, it would be reasonable to think that that is the case. But, there's a lot of angles to all this stuff. It's so confusing, even I get sick of it. In fact, I'm sick of it. I'd rather have a short life that is just natural and normal, quite frankly. I say that honestly. Like even if I was going to die in 6 months' time, just give me 6 months of peace and to where I can just be normal, natural human being, or what I think is a normal, natural human being. Let me have my delusion even. That shows you that I'm frustrated to say that, but that's the truth. But I would think that this is just based on what I have started to say when I, many videos ago, or when I come to this kind of idea and this realisation that humans are so limited, or made to be so limited because they're in a limited matrix, that, like I say, there's, like technology can extend life, can improve health, can give much. It can, I'm sure it can. I haven't experienced it myself personally. but what I have experienced, or what I thought that I was experiencing. There again, the matrix can work for good or for bad. It can be positive or negative depending on whether you're favoured or not, or what your position is in the matrix, whether you're used to the matrix, whether the matrix likes you, doesn't like you, all this sort of stuff. It's like that. I personally do think that, that all things being equal, which they are not because you're in a matrix, that at a natural human level, if you are allowed to be natural and be at a reasonable frequency, shall we say, in other words, a reasonable level of mental stability, mental contentment, shall we say. That's just putting it bluntly, just to where you are not in an anger state or a hate state, or where you're anxiety, stress like I am right now, as you can see. Then, the body will naturally recuperate and things like this, which we know is true. We even know there's a placebo effect, which we've all experienced at times, where they give you a pill and it's really doesn't have any benefit, but because your mind thinks it will make you better, you're better. The placebo effect is 50-50, which is, better odds than sometimes what technology offers you on even the physical. But there again, that depends on how advanced the technology is. If you have more money and you can afford, the technology of the gods, shall we say, that will be a better technology. So it will appear to be magic. It will appear to, and it will deliver too. But you see what I'm trying to say is that is only because you become more of the matrix. If you don't become more of the technological matrix, at a natural level, I don't think there's any reason that you should need technology to keep your body healthy or to improve your body. But it's only because you're living in an artificial domain. Everything, your body changes, like, you're not in a conducive environment to where your body functions well. And so therefore then you do resort to technology to try to make it normal or to improve it or whatever, depending on what your aim is. Some people are just trying to get back to a normal body, just to where they can survive and function. I know that's probably my way of looking at it, but in reality then, if you get to 80 or 90, you might say, I want to live longer, because even then, but you know what I'm trying to say. I rambled on too much and it's time for me to go because I'm ceasing to make sense. There's my little list of all the movies. I made that list months and months ago and I haven't got through any of the movies. Not that it matters in a way, because, the movies just explain what I see as a reality, and I believe that they're fairy tales that are, that have already come true, because I say there's no time really. So, see, I'm saying this and yet I don't fully comprehend it myself, but, most things have already happened. Like I say, if my